The next person I will bring to the podium, I'm excited. We did not make the change in our program, but I'd like to bring Dr. Patrice Bax. She just recently completed her PhD at the University of Arkansas. So please come to the podium.
Good morning. I thank you for mentioning that. That was a long 7-year journey, so I'm excited to be done. But I serve as Director of Programs for Brandon House Culture and Performing Arts Center, and we are a proud Ms. Sargo grant recipient. We facilitate a program called Arts Over Tobacco, where we encourage youth to be involved in more creative and artistic activities as an alternative to using tobacco products. And we actually have a campaign called Just Don't, where we say don't vape, just vibe, don't use tobacco, use talent, don't smoke cigs, sing songs, don't pull pipes, paint pictures, and don't be dumb, be dope. And that usually gets a lot of our youth involved or engaged in the conversation. One of the first questions that I ask students when I'm doing presentations is, how many of you guys are ready to die? Now imagine being in a room full of middle school students, some high school students, and that question usually throws them off. You know, that gets their attention. Now we always have a few middle school students that raise their hand because they can't see life outside of the stress of 7th grade, which is a whole nother conference, right? And we also have some of those students who are super saved and they're ready to meet their maker. But then majority of the students, they choose that they have other accomplishments that they want to accomplish. They have goals, career aspirations, different things that they want to pursue. And so the conversation about the harms of tobacco use and you know, some of the things that are affected by secondhand smoke, that conversation gets easier with those students. And then I scare them with showing them real pig lungs that have been affected by secondhand smoke, and actually have samples of the kind of poison that's in tobacco products. And by the end of the workshop, they're educated and they're committed to having these hard conversations with adults. Unfortunately, the conversation with adult smokers is not that easy. And so I am grateful to be able to introduce to you a survivor who's going to be our next speaker. But before I get there, I just wanted to remind attendees to make sure that your cell phones are on vibrate and they're silent. And if you have to take a call, please step out into the lobby. And then also to complete your evaluations at the end of the conference so that we can do our best to improve for the next Clearing the Air. And without further ado, I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our next guest speaker, who has an amazing testimony. Ms. Julia Childs, she had tried her first cigarette out of curiosity when she was in her 20s, her early 20s, and she left her large family in Mississippi for the adventures of moving to New York, where opportunity awaited her. Within a year of her first pull, Julia was addicted to smoking a pack a day, and after experiencing many symptoms, she moved back to living in Mississippi, and her sister took her to the doctor for a colonoscopy. At that time, they found out she had a tumor in her colon, and she had surgery right away, followed by months of chemotherapy to treat the cancer. Over the years, Julia had tried to quit smoking. She stopped while she was pregnant and made every effort to not to smoke around her son, and family members kept urging her to quit. Family members kept after her to quit smoking, and they supported her in her first hard days as she adjusted to life without cigarettes. Today, Julia says that her life is so much better without cigarettes, and she hopes to encourage people that hear her story about smoking and colon cancer to encourage them to quit. So can you please give a celebratory round of applause and a warm welcome for our next speaker, an overcomer, a survivor, and a walking testimony, Ms. Julia Childs.
First, I'd like to say, giving honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, but because of his love, his mercy, and his grace, that I'm still here today. And I would just like to say good morning to everyone. My name is Julia Childs. I'm here representing the CDC TIPS campaign. I would like to thank the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff and Marion Lowry for having me to speak today and to tell my story. First, I'd just like to say, I'll never be the same. Misinformed, uneducated about what I was doing, poor choices, and when I got with the CDC to do the commercial, I didn't even know how long I had smoked. I didn't even realize it. But they brought years and asked me different questions about, you know, what I had been through and what had happened, and I smoked for 25 years and I didn't even realize it. It didn't seem like very long at all, but it was 25 years. So I was shocked at my own self. And never be the same. I went through the cancer, and the surgery, the chemo, and the colostomy bag. The colostomy bag, I was so happy that I was able to use that because it helped in my healing process. And I just thank God for the colostomy bag, but I also thank God that they were able to put me back together. And my son, he was 9 years old when I got sick. And when I went to the hospital, and he's always seen me up and getting around and doing good, but when he saw me laying in the hospital with tubes and oxygen and all this different stuff on me, he came through the door, because what happened was, I left home and I didn't come back. See, when I left home, I went to get the colonoscopy, and they found a tumor, and I couldn't use the bathroom anymore. That was one of the things that I had to rush and try to get that solved out. They found a tumor, it had blocked everything, and I couldn't use the bathroom anymore. So when I left home, I didn't come back. And that scared Andre, and it scared my mom. And when I got back home, he followed me around everywhere I went. He slept with me. I guess he said, she ain't gonna leave home, don't come back home. Because if she leave home again, I'm going with her. But I was born and raised in West Point, Mississippi. My dad and my mom, they got married when they were real young, and they had 7 kids, 4 girls and 3 boys. My father was the only smoker in the house. We were raised up in Christian values, and my mom, she wouldn't touch him, she wouldn't go nowhere near him, and she forbade us to do it. Although my father smoked, my 2 brothers, they didn't smoke until they had got older. But none of us smoked until we got grown. Me and my sister was living with me. I was married, and I wasn't smoking. When I married my husband, he was an avid smoker. You know, a chain smoker, what is that? I mean, every time you turn around, he got one. And I never even considered smoking. When my father was doing it, because my mom stayed on us anyway. But when I married him, I didn't even start smoking. But one day she was living with us for a while, and she was in the living room. And I went in the living room and she was sitting there smoking a cigarette. And I started from that. I don't know why I waited. I guess maybe some people are more influenced on you than others. I guess that's gotta be it. I went to New York and I got engaged, and I was still smoking. I got pregnant with Andre, and after I had him, I went right back to smoking again. I didn't stop. I just kept smoking, not knowing the danger I was doing to my body. Not being educated and not knowing what you're doing when you make these poor choices. I thought if you smoked and you blew it out, that was it. I really thought that. But when I really realized, and I was told and I read about what I was really doing to myself, I felt rather dumb. But the smoke goes in your system, and it just goes through your bloodstream, and it affects everything about your body. And I had to learn that. And I started having real bad pains after I got home from New York with my son. And I didn't realize what it was, and it was progressively got worse. It was subtle at first, and I kept smoking, and it just progressively got worse. And then that's when it got to the point where I couldn't use the bathroom anymore. And when I went and get the colonoscopy and the man came and told me cancer, I thought I was gonna die. When you hear that word cancer, you think about death. And I thought I was gonna die. So, my father, he tried his best to quit smoking. I remember he smoked a lot. We was in the military, and that's where he started smoking. And he tried his best to quit, he did. And he went from a cigarette to a cigar to a pipe. But see, we was uneducated about that because all of that was still tobacco, and it wasn't gonna get any better, you know. And my brother, two of my brothers smoked. My baby brother, he's dead from smoking, complications. He had diabetes and he had his heart. He had congestive heart failure. He had to have open heart surgery, and he died from the smoking. And my father also died from smoking. He had small heart attacks until he died over a period of time of a couple of years. And he just, one night my mom, got real sick at home. She took him to the hospital and he died on the way to the hospital. And all of this was from smoking. Smoking is a very dangerous addiction. I tell my son all the time, when he leaves home, I told him, I said, Andre, just because you see other people doing it, be a leader, not a follower. And see, that's what's wrong. We tend to see us just like what I did with my sister. Instead of me looking at her and saying, what you smoking at, you know, you shouldn't be doing that, I joined in with her. But just like I said, I was uneducated. I didn't know what it would do to my body. But I've been through a lot. My body will never be the same. I've had to have constant trips to the emergency room for pain, sharp pains in my abdomen, and what a colostomy bag was. I have a hernia, and I got to get it fixed, and I have a lot of scar tissue. So see, I wouldn't even been through all of that if I had only knew what I was doing to myself. And it was destroying my voice. I sing in the choir at home, and it was destroying my voice. But ever since I quit, I can breathe. I feel better, and I'm so happy. And I tell my son, I said, Andre, don't touch it. Don't go near it. And if anybody come to you with any, just because you know right from wrong. I've taught you better. So when you know better, you're supposed to do better. And I'm just giving him a foundation in the Lord and just hoping that he'll listen at me. Hoping that he'll listen at me and just look at when he came in the room that day, in the hospital room, and saw me laying there, for him to remember that. Remember how his mom was laying there in the bed. Really, the doctor said if I hadn't came to the hospital within 2 days' time, I would have died. I was just that close to dying. So I'll tell anyone, cigarettes, very bad addiction. You get hooked up in it, and I didn't use gum or patch. I used my faith to quit. I just kept asking the Lord, I said, Jesus, please take this away from me. I just kept asking him and begging him, and he took it away. He took the taste away, and I just praise his name every day, and he restored my voice back to the way it was. So now when I sing in the choir, it's loud, and I'm praising his name. And I would just like to tell you all, thank you for having me here today. It was an honor and a pleasure. And when I used to work at school too, with the kids, and I tell them, I would talk to them a lot about smoking. And I tell people at church, a lot of people have seen the commercial I was in, they've come up to me and asked me how did I do it, how did I quit? And I just told them, I said, by the help of God, but I said, it got other things that can help you too, out there. So you have to be determined. You have to want it bad. You just like anything else in life. You just have to want it real bad. And if you want it bad enough, you will eventually get it. I'll tell anybody that. So thank you all very much for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you all. And I just want to tell everybody, smoking, I'm so glad I don't do it anymore. I just praise God. It wasn't easy to quit. It took me a while. I had to kind of like taper off. But when he took it away, he took it away. Thank you.
We're gonna play a couple of videos so that we can see Miss Julia's commercials. And then after that, if you guys have any questions for her, it will allow questions.
Whenever you hear the word cancer, you think of death immediately. You don't think that you're gonna live. And if you do live, it won't be for very long. When I kept smoking, I noticed I got sicker. I noticed what was going on with me got worse. I went to the doctor. They was given a colonoscopy. That's when they found the tumor. I thought about my son. I wouldn't be around for him and my mom and my sisters. The sickness really opened my eyes. It really woke me up to what I was doing was damaging to myself and the people around me. When my son came to the hospital and saw me laying there with the tubes and stuff, he just broke down. He was just 9 years old then, but he just broke down. And I didn't think it would affect him that bad, but it affected him really bad. He's like a miracle to me, so I couldn't see myself keep doing something to hurt myself or even hurt him. My mom was still living then, and it was affecting her. She was taking it pretty bad. She just cried out, "Lord, please don't let my baby die." It affected not only me, but my family, and I think it hurt me more affecting my family than me, so. If I could change one person, just change one person's idea about smoking, just help one person realize that it's not worth your time, it's not worth your health, and to think about your family and just think about your life. People laugh about having gas.
Or anything to do with your bowels.
It's funny.
Until a doctor finds a tumor in your colon.
And you smoked.
And you nearly die.
And you have surgery.
And chemotherapy.
And a colostomy bag.
If that happens to you, my tip would be to keep your sense of humor.
You're gonna need it.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Are there any questions for Miss Julia Childs? Yes.
How long did it take you to
Completely quit. It took about, I think about 6 months. I just kept praying and asking God to take it away, and before I knew it, I just wasn't doing it anymore. About 6 months. Oh, 20 years. I'm 63. I know I don't look it.
I actually have a question for you. Is this your son?
That's my son.
How did it affect you to first see your mom go through this and then the recovery process of her quitting? How did it affect you before and after?
When I first seen him, I was in a state of shock. You know, I just walked right into her room and seeing her just sitting there motionless. I think she was on anesthesia or something like that. She was motionless, and then I just broke down. And my aunt, she took me outside and just calmed me down. And now, when I look at her now, it's a gift from God. I got tip for all you young people who got mothers and fathers that smoking. It's not worth it. Just tell them, just give them help, intervention, anything. Just tell them you don't want to see them in the casket early. And that's all I got to say right there.
And I would be remiss. I'm from a culture performing arts center. If you can give me one line of Amazing Grace, then I'm gonna let you go.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves